Hi friends, welcome back to the NeuroSpicy MomPod, where we talk all things neurodivergence, parenting, trauma healing, and occasionally why the grocery store is sensory hell, but we still have to go anyway. I'm your host, Austin Marie, and today's episode is going to be a lighthearted, validating, and dare I say, kind of hilarious. We're calling this one, You Might Be NeuroSpicy If. This episode is for anyone who ever cried over sock seams, peeled the labels off water bottles like it was your full-time job, or got way too emotionally attached to a specific hoodie. We're talking about the subtle signs, the stuff that flew under the radar, the quiet, sensory, pattern-loving, emotionally attuned traits that got labeled quirky, dramatic, but were actually neon signs pointing to your beautiful neurospicy brain. So if you've ever looked back on your childhood and gone, oh, that was autism, or wait, that wasn't normal, this episode is for you. Let's talk about the weird little things we did that actually made perfect sense to our nervous systems. I used to obsessively tuck my hair behind my ears. Even now, to this day, before getting ready to record, I had to make sure my hair is all the way behind my ears before putting on these headphones, like every 10 seconds. It isn't about looks. It's that I cannot handle the sensation of hair on my face. It feels like someone is whispering directly on into my ear, and I can't concentrate on anything until it's gone. Turns out that's tactile hypersensitivity, a super common sensory trait in autistic and ADHD folks. After showers, I can't get dressed right away. I will wrap myself in a towel and lay on my bedroom floor or just collapse on my bed for a while. It's not laziness. It's just that my whole body needs a processing buffer. The heat, the towel texture, the noise of the water, the wet hair, it is just a lot. And no one ever told me that overstimulation could happen even in calm environments like taking showers. I didn't know that I was overstimulated. I didn't even have the language for that. I wasn't calling myself dramatic. I was just existing inside a body that felt overwhelmed without knowing why. I truly thought that I just hated dealing with my wet hair, but in hindsight, that was my nervous system begging for regulation. And then there's the floor. I basically lived on the floor growing up. I'd do my homework on the floor, talk on the phone on the floor, read books for hours. You guessed it, I was on the floor. I was like a little cat. Something about the solid pressure of the ground made me feel safe. I now know that's connected to proprioception and grounding, the way some of us regulate through deep contact with our own environment. My body was seeking what it needed, even before I had words for it. And now I watch my own two kiddos lay on the ground. There were other signs too. Nail biting, skin picking, chewing on the sleeves of my sweaters, getting hyperfixated on the texture of my clothes, or refusing to wear jeans unless they were exactly the right level of softness. All of these things were treated like bad habits or pickiness, when they were really just signs that my sensory system needed support. And this is why I wanted to make this episode, because for so many of us, the signs were there. We just didn't know what they meant. Our parents didn't know, our teachers didn't know, and instead of curiosity, we got correction. But the truth is, we weren't too much. We were just too misunderstood. And today, we're giving those clues the recognition they always deserved. Looking back, I also realized something I didn't have the words for then. I was scared. Not in the jump, scare, thriller, movie kind of way, but in the deep baseline nervous system way. My body lived in fear. Hypervigilance wasn't a response to a threat, it was the default, especially while I was living alone in my 20s. I thought I was just being cautious or street smart, but the truth is, I was operating in a chronic state of fight or flight. Science backs this up. When someone grows up with trauma or unrecognized neurodivergence, the brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, can become overactive. That means your body stays on high alert, even when you're technically safe. Add in sensory overwhelm, emotional sensitivity, or past invalidation, and suddenly everyday life feels like a battlefield. I wasn't just sensitive. I was trying to survive a world that kept hitting my nervous system too hard, too fast, too often, especially while I was alone in my 20s. I just thought I was being cautious or a little jumpy, but now I understand that what I was feeling was persistent, unprocessed fear. My nervous system was in a constant state of alert, and I didn't even know it. I just thought it was just life. All right, friends, time to shift gears from stories to science. All right, so let's talk about our special interests and animal obsessions. Did you have a theme of the year as a kid? I sure did. Every academic year, I became obsessed with a different animal species. One year it was dolphins, reading every book I could get my hands on, even having a favorite plushie that was my favorite animal at the time. Next year, owls, then turtles. Each obsession swept in and took over every conversation, sticker collections, and bedtime thoughts. That's a textbook neurodivergent special interest. About 75 to 90% of autistic folks develop these laser-focused passions, and often centered around animals, transportation, maps, or mythology. And they can last for years or shift seasonally depending on what lights up the brain. Why animals and nature? There's the biophilia hypothesis, the idea that humans have an innate bond with nature and living things. But for neurodivergent folks, this bond can feel even deeper. Animals don't judge. Nature doesn't require masking. There's predictability, beauty, and connection without the pressure of social rules. Studies back that up. Neurodivergent individuals often prefer the company of animals over people and experience lower stress, better communication, and more emotional regulation when interacting with animals. One eye tracking study even found that autistic children gazed longer at animal faces than human ones. Not out of disinterest, but because animal faces felt safer, more rewarding, and less socially complex. So your childhood dolphin era, your monarch butterfly binder, that wasn't just a phase. It was a neurological anchor, your brain reaching for something nourishing, consistent, and safe. Okay, now it's time for the fun part, the list that'll either make you laugh, cry, or text your therapist. Let's talk about the things you maybe never connected to neurodivergence, but totally are. And I'm not just talking about the obvious stuff. I'm talking about the weird little behaviors, the habits you didn't even question. You might be neurospicy if you peel off the labels of every water bottle, or chew your sleeves like they're a snack, or maybe you cried over tight ponytails or the tags in your shirt because they make your entire body feel like it's screaming. You might have had a favorite spoon or cup and refused to use any other. Or maybe you panic when someone sat in your assigned seat in class and the whole day you felt thrown off. Maybe you spent hours laying belly down on the carpet, not because you were tired, but because it felt grounding. Maybe you got overwhelmed in grocery stores and couldn't explain why you wanted to just get out of there. Maybe you can hear the lights buzzing or feel the fabric of your clothes like it was sandpaper, or notice smells before anyone else seems to notice. Maybe you can't sleep unless your blanket is tucked just right, or you always felt more at ease with animals than people. You might have hyper-focused for hours and then missed meals or spiraled when plans changed last minute because you need that routine. You might have masked your quirks every single day, forcing eye contact, rehearsing jokes in your head, and pretending to be more okay than what you really were. Or you might stim in little ways like tapping, rocking, humming, picking at your fingers just to regulate yourself. These aren't random quirks. They're patterns. They're clues. They're your nervous system leaving breadcrumbs. You weren't picky. You were perceptive. You weren't dramatic. You were dysregulated. You weren't weird. You were wired differently. And you might just be beautifully, brilliantly neurospicy. If you've made it this far and you're still sitting there going, wait, this is me, I want to take a second to hold space for that. Realizing you might be neurodivergent, whether you're formally diagnosed or not, is a big, sometimes emotionally, deeply validating thing. So what do you do with this information? How do you start supporting your beautifully sensitive, pattern-seeking, overstimulated nervous system? Here are a few ideas from both science and a little bit of soft, sparkly woo. Start by noticing. Awareness is your first tool. Notice when your body feels tight, loud, overwhelmed, or shut down. Name what's happening. That alone can start to shift your experience. Create your sensory sanctuary. Think textures, smells, lighting. Maybe it's soft blankets, a favorite hoodie, calming music, or twinkle lights. Neurodivergent brains love predictable, soothing environments. Move your body intuitively, not to exercise, but to regulate. Stretching, pacing, dancing to one specific song on a loop. Anything that helps your nervous system move through that stuck energy. Build in pause time. After transitions, after socializing, or after errands, your brain needs buffers more than you think. Use grounding tools. Try a weighted blanket, magnesium lotion, a fidget, essential oils, or literally stepping outside barefoot to feel the earth. Yes, we're getting woo now, and also it works. Nature heals. Play with the ritual. A morning cup of tea you stir with intention, pulling a tarot card to check in with your energy, saying affirmations or writing down what you're releasing under a full moon or not, anything that reconnects you to you. And find your community, whether it's friends, a support group, or a cozy little podcast like this one. You are not meant to do this alone. You deserve care, regulation, softness, and safety. You deserve to unmask, unlearn, and be loved exactly as you are. And if no one's told you this lately, you're not broken. You're just spicy, and I'm so glad you're here. If this episode hit home, I'd love to hear which one made you say, oh my God, that's totally me. Share your subtle signs on Instagram or TikTok and tag me at the NeuroSpicy Mama, or message me directly. I love hearing your stories. And if you want to support this podcast and join a growing community of fellow NeuroSpicy souls, you can subscribe on Patreon. It keeps this show going and helps me create more content like this. This week's business spotlight goes to Bianca Cox, my wonderful Sparkling Spaces client, passionate podcast supporter, and experienced mortgage loan officer at CMG Home Loans. She's fully licensed in California and Hawaii, specializes in first-time homebuyers, refinancing, VA and FHA loans, and more. If you're entering the housing market or refinancing, Bianca will help you feel empowered and supported through every step. Find her on Instagram at BIANCAARMANINI_MLO. Thank you, Bianca, for lifting up our NeuroSpicy community and for the heart you bring to everyone you serve. Thanks for listening, for sharing, and for being exactly who you are. See you next week, fam. Ta-ta.